guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be having a little bit of an eyeshadow showdown. I'm going to be putting the Alter Ego Daydream Palette head to head with its inspiration, the Huda Nude Palette. Now, if you've watched my videos for any length of time, you probably know I'm obsessed with this palette. It is one of my favorite things in my collection. But as we just recently learned, it is also the most expensive eyeshadow palette that I own and have ever purchased. So while this guy will always have a special place in my heart, the idea of being able to have an affordable alternative to recommend to you guys is pretty appealing. Not everybody wants to spend $65 on an eyeshadow palette, which is what this baby costs. But this guy here is only $18, which is less than half the price of Huda's, so way more budget friendly. Now, before sitting down to film this video, I had not actually played with this palette at all yet. It's been on my to-do list for weeks, but I've been so crazy busy, I haven't been wearing a ton of makeup, so I just figured, you know what, I don't want to postpone any longer. Let's just test it out on camera together. So I figured we will create essentially the same look with the Daydream palette on one eye and the Huda palette on the other eye. And right now, I'll give you guys a minute. This is what my eyes are looking like. I'll let you guess which one is Huda and which one is Alter Ego. Now, before I actually jump into the demo and show you guys how I created this look, I want to give you just a little bit more information on this guy. So Alter Ego is a fairly new brand. I don't know what the association with Alter Ego is with Bad Habit. There may not be any at all. I've just heard through the grapevine that since Bad Habit went under, Alter Ego is like the rebirthed new version of it. However, there are tons of dupe brands out there, so I honestly really have no idea what is true. I will say though that the packaging on this is beautiful. It's got that nice soft touch finish to it, really pretty like cloud pattern, and it has a slight sheen to it. The lettering is nice on here. Inside, you do get a mirror that's pretty substantial in size, and then the layout of the palette, while the shades are not in the same order, is pretty much identical to Huda, like the same size kind of pans, same shape and everything. You have the shade names listed below, and you see all the same textures you would see in the Huda palette. You have two pressed glitters, you have a bunch of these really cool pressed metallic shades, mattes, and you also have the creamy concealer base as well. Also, if you can hear that, it just started torrentially downpouring. We're in the middle of a thunderstorm, so I'm glad I'm inside. So this is what the two palettes look like side by side. The shades are very similar, but they're not completely identical. You guys will see this more as I actually do the demo. I believe that the Daydream palette is a little more warm toned than the Nude. The Nude is a little more purple, it's a little bit more cool, but all in all, you're getting kind of a pretty similar vibe with both of these palettes. They both have a 12-month shelf life, so neither one really has a benefit in that respect. It looks like the Nude palette is made in Italy, while the Daydream palette is made in the People's Republic of China. And Alter Ego does claim to be a cruelty-free brand, although I don't really know much in the way of whether or not that claim is substantiated. I feel like Huda is not cruelty-free. I know a lot of people don't consider Huda cruelty-free because she makes mink lashes, so that I'm also a little bit unsure about. So if you are cruelty-free, I would definitely do your homework before picking up either of these palettes. And the net weights on these guys are different. The Daydream palette actually has less product than the Huda palette. This guy weighs in at 16.2 grams. This guy is 19.7 grams. So while you are saving some money with the Daydream palette, you are getting a little bit less in each of these pans. So with all that being said, I'm gonna show you guys how this Daydream palette actually applied to my eyes. I'm not gonna do any swatches yet because I kind of want you to see the shadows for the first time in action on my eyes, but we'll maybe do a little swatching after we create the look. All right, so as you can clearly see, I haven't put my face on yet. I almost never ever do my eyes first, but I figured, you know what, we'll give it a try today. I don't know if the Daydream palette is going to have fallout, so I figured it was better to be safe than sorry. So for now, I'm just gonna take my Tarte Shape Tape and I'm going to use this as a base. So I think what I'm going to do is use Huda on my left eye and the Alter Ego Daydream palette on my right eye. So I don't really know what my game plan is. I do think I want to try out the glitters today just to see how the ones in the Alter Ego palette stick. So I'm probably going to gravitate more towards the rosy tones, but I don't know, I'm just gonna kind of wing it like I usually do. So the first shade I'm gonna go into in the Huda palette is the shade called Play, which is sort of like a light peach. And I'm going to put this all into the crease to start creating a transition. So with the Huda shadows, especially this shade, I feel like it doesn't go on insanely pigmented. It shows up, but it's very buildable. So you can kind of easily layer it. It's not patchy at all, it's really smooth. I like this color a lot. So the comparable shade in the Daydream palette is this guy right here in the corner called Bubbly. So let's see how this works. Okay, it's definitely kicking up some powder in the pan. The tones do look pretty similar. I feel like this guy, I'm needing to layer up a little bit more, but it's really not that different on the eyes. Now I love a good halo eye, and I know I've created many a beautiful halo eye with the new Nude palette in the past, so maybe that's what I'll try today. So the next shade that I'm gonna go into is Tickle, which is kind of a mid-toned, dusty, rosy pink. And I'm just picking this up on a Luxie shader brush. It's flat, but it's pretty fluffy, so it's good at both patting on color and then like kind of blending it and diffusing it out. And I'm going to put this on the outer corner of the eye as well as into the inner corner. And then I'm gonna kind of just gently connect right in the crease, those two shades. And I'm gonna go back in with Play, the first shade, to make sure everything is nicely blended. Now, looking at the Daydream palette, I don't really feel like there's a shade exactly like Tickle in here. The closest thing is Sunset, but I don't really feel like it's quite as pink. It's just like a little more nudie brown, but there really isn't any other option. So we're just gonna go in with Sunset and see what happens. Maybe it'll look different on the eyes than it does in the pan. And I'm using a very, very similar Luxie brush on this side. It's interesting, on the eyes, I feel like the Huda's pulling a little more purple. This is pulling a little more brown, like it definitely has more of a true pink tone to it, whereas this is more of a purpley pink. The sun just decided apparently that it was going to come out and play, so I just had to adjust my lighting quickly. Hopefully it still looks okay. All right, so now I'm gonna take two smaller, kind of more smudgy brushes, and I'm going to deepen things out in the corners even more. In the Huda palette, I'm gonna go in with the shade Spanked, which is like a dark sort of orchid shade. And I'm just going to layer this up right in the very outer corner and in the inner corner. I think I'm gonna take this right into the deepest part of the crease and connect. On this side, I'm gonna use the shade here called Enchanted. Again, this to me is more of a warm pink than like a purple pink. In general, I think that's the vibe that I'm getting from this Daydream palette. It's that the Huda palette, while it says New Nude, it actually leans much more purple in tone, where I feel like this Daydream palette actually leans more in like the warm berry pink side of things. See, I'm getting like a little patch there, and I just put shadow there. Like it doesn't adhere to itself quite as well as I feel like the Huda does. I also feel like everything over here is just getting kind of muddy, whereas this side still looks pretty precise. I don't know about that. Yeah, I feel like I'm losing all of my dimension over on this side. It's very weird. Like I'm trying to build up the darker shade, but I don't really feel like it's building, or when I try to blend it, it kind of all just blends away, which is frustrating. So now I'm going to go ahead and put some shimmer in the center of my lid, but I'm going to go in first with the concealer shade that's in this palette to actually help it to adhere. I also really want to test the concealer shade in the Alter Ego and see how good it is. So I'm just going in with a flat brush, and I'm going to apply this to the center of the lid where I didn't apply any color. And then I'm gonna go into the shade Fantasy in here, which is kind of the rosy shimmer. I'm just gonna go on my finger. I feel like these shades usually apply best with the finger. And I'm just gonna pop that right on top. All right, so here's what the Huda eye is looking like. Definitely gonna need to like blend that in a second, but let's move on to this eye first. All right, so I got another little flat brush here. going into the conceal. I feel like this is maybe a little bit creamier, but as I'm blending it in, it definitely still feels sticky like the Huda does. And it seems to be showing up, which is nice. And then I think the shade in here that's comparable is Dreamer right over here. So this, to the touch, does actually feel very different than the Huda. It feels quite a bit softer, actually. I think the Huda ones feel very firmly pressed and almost a little slick, like you can tell they have a silicone base to them. So let's see. Ooh, yeah. This is actually, I think, more impactful, like more intense than the Huda is. I mean, like, look at the difference. I feel like you can see this side, I think, is like a little bit shinier than the Huda is. All right, so now I need to like start to perfect things. I'm gonna go back into the shade Spanked, and I'm gonna intensify the edges again. I don't know, I feel like the Huda definitely layers well. Like when you blend it, I don't feel like you just blend the shadow underneath away, which is good. I feel like I still need more depth. So I'm gonna go into the shade Love Bite, which is the dark purple in the Huda palette. I'm picking up just like a little fluffy pencil brush. And I'm gonna put this in the outer corners. Let's see if I can intensify things even more. And in the Daydream palette, I have the shade Sugar Plum here. That's the dupe. Feel like that baby just stuck right on that concealer. That is gonna be a pain in the butt to blend out. Okay. This is problematic and annoying. Okay, so as you can clearly see, I have like serious patching going on right here. It's probably because that's the edge of where the concealer was, and even though I put shadow on top of it, which should have set it, the powder that I just applied is clinging there. So now I've got these lovely little patches that are probably gonna be a pain in the butt to blend out. Let me see if I use my fingers. I might be able to kind of smooth things over. Taking a little more of that Dreamer shade. I'm just gonna put that down. Oh, this is gonna be, ugh, not the best. Okay, so now I'm going back in with the Sugar Plum shade. See, like I'm trying to build it up in the corners, and I feel like it's not really sticking where the other shadow is. Do you see what I mean? Do you see this? There's like this huge bald patch right here. Like it's just like weirdly sticking in some places, and then when I tried to blend, just completely coming off. That is very frustrating. I don't like that at all. Can I save it? Maybe, but possibly not. I'm gonna try to use the smudge brush here to pack the color on maybe instead of blending it. Let's see. I'm gonna try to like at least cover up some of those bald patches. Yeah, this is one of those situations that the more you work at it, the worse and worse it gets. Well, I guess it was a good thing that I did my eyes first, because I honestly think I'm just gonna take this whole thing off and try again. Like that just looks terrible. It looks awful. So, all right, I'm gonna do all the matte shadows first and then go in with the shimmer and see how that works. I feel like that dark shade, as soon as you blend it, poof, gonzo. Like, it is not sticking at all. Alrighty then. Well, that is kind of disappointing, but let's move on. I'm now going to go into the shade Crave here in the Huda palette on another pencil brush. Going to use this as an inner corner highlight. So I'm just going to kind of buff this right into the inner corner of the eye. And I'm applying this dry. I did not wet my brush. I did not apply anything down. I just kind of wanted to see how it would work. And then on this side, the comparable shade is Star-Crossed right here, which looks a little more, I don't know how to describe it, almost like it's weird. It's a little more of a warm gold, which again, seems kind of the case with everything in this palette. All right, I'm getting some nice shine out of that. So that's good. And then because, you know, I can never have too much glitter, let's add a little for funsies. I'm gonna opt for the lighter of the two glitters in the Huda palette. I feel like that will go better with our look today. Now, I would also normally apply a glitter glue, but I'm kind of curious to see how these adhere on their own. So I'm just going to tap just a little of this glitter in the center of my lid. This is also why I didn't do my face first. So I'm definitely getting glitter fallout. I kind of expected that, but the Huda sticks decently well. And then in the Daydream palette, we have this glitter here, which I feel like is more multicolored than in the Huda palette. It kind of has gold and like bronzy pink shimmers in it. So I don't know, it may look the same on the eyes. I am getting less glitter fallout, so that's nice. I do kind of feel like the concealer in this palette is stickier though, as we clearly saw from the hot mess that happened like a few minutes ago, which is not so good if you want to blend with any kind of mattes after you apply the shimmers, but it does seem to help the glitters stick a little bit better. All right, so I am going to put on maybe a little liner, lashes, mascara, etc. Finish up the rest of my face, and then we'll be back to do like the lower lash line, and I'll share some final thoughts with you guys. And I'm back. I feel like liner and lashes definitely help everything. Just having them on now, I feel like is definitely making my eyes look less wonky and crazy and uneven than they did before. So I'm just gonna keep things pretty simple on the lower lash line. I'm gonna go in with the shade Tickle, which was the first kind of pinky shade we used on this side, and I'm just gonna smudge that on the lower lash line. And then on the other side, I'm gonna use the shade Sunset, which is supposed to be the dupe for Tickle. All right, so here are the eyes finished. I feel like it's definitely looking better than I thought it was going to, the liner and the lashes. They make a world of difference. But there are some definite noticeable differences between my two eyes. So I'm gonna like zoom you guys back out so we're not like right on top of each other, and I'll share some final thoughts. All right, so it's time to weigh in on my first impressions thoughts of this Alter Ego Daydream Palette. Obviously, I struggled with this guy quite a bit. These two matte shades, while they feel to the touch very, very soft, I felt like they just did not stick to my eyes. I'm gonna do a little swatch just to see. Now, swatched out, it looks fine. They both seem to have plenty of pigmentation. They seem to blend really nicely on the skin. So I don't know what the heck was up with how these went on with their brush. Maybe part of the problem is that once you've layered powder on top of your eyes, these just don't stick well to the powder. So maybe if you're going straight in on a naked lid, or you're going on a freshly primed lid, maybe these shadows would hold up really nicely. But man, you guys saw it with your own eyes. Like, I just could not get, especially this dark shade, to like build up on my lids. Now, just for a little bit of shade comparison, I'm gonna take Tickle and Love Bite, which are the dupe shades in the Huda palette, and I'm gonna swatch them below the other shades. And here's what's funny. This Love Bite shade swatches way more patchily than the Daydream palette, but yet on the eyes, I feel like it built up so much more nicely. The Tickled shade, though, however, is very, very smooth, and you can see that it is really nicely pigmented. If there is one thing to take away from this very thing right here, it's that swatches are not everything. You really need to test eyeshadow out on your eyes to know how it's gonna perform. I'm also curious, because we didn't use the shade, there is one kind of like satiny shade in the Huda palette called Kinky. So that's like a regular, more standard metallic. It doesn't have the like shimmery nuggets in it that some of the other shades do. So that's what the Huda looks like swatched. Let's see what Twilight, which is the comparable shade in the Alter Ego palette, looks like. So those actually both look pretty similar. That one felt very creamy, really nice formula. I will say I was generally pretty impressed with the level of shimmer and pigmentation of the metallic shades in the Daydream palette. I'm gonna pick up this shade here called Fairytale, which is the purpley shade. Let's see how that one looks compared to Daydream, which is the comparable shade in the Huda. So here is the Daydream. Ooh, that, like, look at how beautiful that is. And then this is Huda. So, I mean, swatch-wise, both of these palettes swatch absolutely beautifully. And the metallics and the shimmery shades, for sure, are more similar in the impact that they give. If anything, I feel like the Daydream palette might even have a leg up on Huda a little bit in that respect. But I do really think that the formula of the mattes in the Huda palette are superior. They're just way more pigmented, easy to work with, more blendable. They just have like a little bit of a creamier texture to them. So I don't know. I'll have to definitely play with this guy more. Obviously, this is just a first impression kind of review, so it's not really like 100% accurate. I want to try this guy with maybe some different primers, my NYX glitter glue, maybe not use the concealer base that's in here next time and see if that makes any difference with the crazy patchiness that I experienced. Because I hesitate to like write this guy off so quickly. I mean, the price point is amazing. Obviously, as much as I love this palette, it's very, very expensive, and not everybody's gonna want to shell out the kind of money that this palette costs. But I love this color scheme so much. I think it creates so many beautiful romantic looks. So having an option at less than half the price is really nice. So I think the verdict is still out on this guy. I think if you were willing to gamble and pick it up, there's definitely enough in here that I think will perform well, that it wouldn't totally be a waste of your money. I'm gonna need to obviously keep testing it out to see if I can make the mattes work a little bit better for me. So I will give you guys an update in my beauty report video that I do at the end of every month, and I'll let you know whether or not I feel any differently. But for now, at least I feel pretty safe to say that this guy has not dethroned Nude. This is still obviously one of my favorite palettes. It's pretty hard to top this guy, and while there is some promise in this palette, it's not exactly the same. Alright guys, so that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed seeing these eyeshadow palettes in action. You'll definitely have to leave a comment and let me know if you've tried either of these, what you think of them, if you have them both, which one do you like better, and especially if you own the Daydream palette, have you had the same issues that I just experienced, or has it worked better for you? Do you have any tips or tricks to share? I would definitely love to hear what you guys have to say. And always, if you like this video, I hope you will consider giving it a thumbs up. I really appreciate your support so much. And if you're not already subscribed and you want to see me again, come hang out with me in the future, make sure you click that button before you go. And yeah, on that note, I'm gonna let you guys go, but I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.